Hi, everybody, and welcome to Title II Tuesday, brought to you by the Center for Inclusive Teaching and Learning here at UWSP. It's week 10 of our bite-sized remediation, and we're progressing toward Title II compliance, one step at a time. Making your course accessible doesn't need to be completely overwhelming if you break the complex problems down into a series of smaller steps. For the past couple of weeks, you've been working on making images in Canvas compliant. This week, we're going to talk about the accessibility of your Word documents. Let's begin this week with an important note. In most cases, if you're providing written information that the students are expected to access online, the best platform for providing that information is Canvas. So rather than having a document that describes an assignment, it's better to put that description directly into a Canvas assignment. There are a couple of reasons for this. First, it doesn't require that the students leave the LMS to access information. Next, the HTML markup language of Canvas is completely transparent to screen readers. That is, if you followed the instructions so far for Canvas content, what you provide to students in Canvas will be accessible. This isn't always true for documents made in word processing. Keeping the material in Canvas allows students to use the immersive reader that's built into Canvas, which has a number of accessibility tools that allows students to adjust the appearance of the font to suit their needs and provides a read aloud option. Fortunately, you can convert a document into a Canvas page, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. If you choose to keep materials in digital document format for distribution to your students, you'll have to make sure that they're accessible. This isn't that different from making sure that your Canvas items are accessible. A lot of the same rules apply. All that's really different is how you complete the specific tasks because the program interface is different than the rich content editor of Canvas. So what do accessible documents look like? Well, let's think about what we've looked at so far in Canvas. First, we talked a lot about video captions and media links. We don't need to worry about transcripts and captions for a document, so it doesn't apply. Color. As with Canvas, you shouldn't use color as the only means of conveying information, and there should be adequate color contrast between foreground text and the background. Links. If you provide links to external resources, the resource URL should be hyperlinked to descriptive text that indicates what's being accessed or the purpose of the resource. And you should remove any ghost links. So no click here's, no URLs directly given. We want to make sure that our links follow the same accessibility rules that we follow in Canvas. Tables should be used for tabular information, not for the structure of page or the placement of content. Remember that columns and rows should be identified as headers in the formatting. Heading structure. Your document should use formatted headings without skipping levels. You're welcome to change the appearance of headings, but should have headings beginning with heading level 1 and moving sequentially through different heading levels. As in Canvas, you should be careful not to have ghost headings in your document. Images. Any images included in your document should include descriptive alt text unless they're decorative. The same rules apply as they did in Canvas. The alternative text should not be a file name, and it should convey the point of the image succinctly. Remember to keep it short. If the image is fully described in inline text, you can mark it as decorative or indicate that the full image description is available elsewhere in the document. Finally, all lists, whether numbered or bulleted, must be made using formatting. So you can't just type in a number and then some text, and then another number and some text, or use a symbol as a bullet without actually formatting the list as a list. There are a few other things that are important in documents as well. Headers and footers in documents are not visible to screen readers, so you need to avoid putting any necessary information in headers or footers that is not covered meaningfully elsewhere in the document. For full accessibility, you must add the file title to the file properties, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Here's one that I think will probably cause some difficulty. The keyboard shortcuts that we use for bolding for italics, things like Command or Control B, Command or Control I, do not reliably provide appropriate HTML markup that's visible to screen readers. This is one of the reasons that it's better to use Canvas if you can. If you're conveying information using these styles, you have to make sure that the formatting of relevant text is made by selecting the appropriate style from the Style menu. Finally, only the most recent versions of Microsoft files are reliably reviewed in UDoIT. So DocX, PPTX, XLS. If you have older file formats, just plain doc files, for example, you have to remediate in the program of origin completely. Okay, let's get started. We'll begin with how to convert a document into a Canvas page using UDoIT. To do this, access the UDoIT tool from your Canvas course menu and scan your course. Navigate to the Review Files tab and click the Review button next to the document you want to convert. Click on Request on the right side of the page next to Canvas Page. This will initiate the conversion of the document to a page. Once the Canvas page is generated, you can view it by clicking the kebab, the 3 vertical dots, in the menu and selecting View, or you can exit UDoIT and access it through your page's interface. Either way, this allows you to edit the page and make any necessary accessibility improvements. But a word of warning, the translation to a page isn't always complete. In this case, I'm missing a whole lot of text, some images, and a table. The amount of remediation that I'll need to do here is pretty extreme because I have unformatted lists interspersed with formatted lists and a lot of links to deal with. Still, this can be easier than trying to retype a document. Okay, you get the gist. The other option for remediating is working with your documents directly in Word. But you've got to be careful since you've probably linked your documents from various places in your course. We don't want to have to find all of those links, and we don't have to. The key is to maintain the file names that you've already uploaded into Canvas. So we need to begin our remediation by downloading our files in bulk so that we can remediate them and re-upload without changing the file names. To do this, access the Files area of Canvas from the blue Course Navigation menu. Clicking on the link will take you to a page that displays all of the files in your course. Note that there are 2 ways to view your files. And to download them, you'll need to be in the new interface. So click on that button if you don't see checkboxes next to your files. In this interface, you can select some or all of your files to download. We recommend downloading all of your files since you will likely need to review them all, and it reduces the chance that you'll miss some files in need of remediation. But here, I'm just downloading the Word files because that's what we're dealing with this week. I select the files and click the Download button, which is located near the top right of the Files area in a row of buttons beneath the search box. Clicking this will download a zipped file containing all of the selected files. You just need to unzip that folder and access the files that you want to remediate in your word processing. So I've downloaded the files, and now I'm going to open one in Microsoft Word. You can see a review of the accessibility state of your document in the lowermost part of the panel. At this time, our goal is to pass this accessibility check because it's a first step. But we should mention that the built-in accessibility checker in Microsoft leaves something to be desired. This will not produce a fully Title II compliant result, but we expect that in future iterations it will. Okay, you can review the document accessibility by accessing the accessibility checker in your Tools menu. You'll get a list of potential problems and you can fix them from that interface. I suggest, however, that you also make use of your knowledge of accessibility guidelines while you're in the document and fix those things that are not compliant that you know about. For example, this check says that I have not used headings in my document, which is true, but that's because I formatted them all by changing the appearance of the font, so they're all big and bold. Now I should go through them and properly format them using the formatting menu. I've got a title, a subtitle, and lots of heading level 1s. As I progress through the document, I can right-click on any images and access the View Alt Text option, To see what alt text exists for the image, I can modify that or mark the images as decorative as I see fit. I have my troublesome lists to format with steps numbered and components of each step bulleted. Note that I'm using the formatting tools just as I would in Canvas. For links, all of which have been rendered here as URLs, remember that we need descriptive text. So I can either right-click on the link to reveal a menu, then click Edit Hyperlink, or I can type the descriptive link text directly into the document, then copy the URL, highlight the descriptive text, right-click on it to get the hyperlink menu, and add the URL here. Then I need to delete the URL from the text. For table formatting, click on the table, then access the Table Design menu. In the far left of the ribbon, you should see formatting details for denoting header rows and columns. You can still change the appearance of these as you'd like, so long as they're formatted as header elements for the table. Please remember that before saving your file, you need to add a title element to the file properties. On my Mac, I locate this in the File menu down at the bottom. Properties. The relevant title field is visible under the Summary tab. I can enter the title here. If you're working on a Windows machine, you'll click Info under the File tab. Then you'll see the word Properties. Click on the caret next to that to access the Advanced Properties interface, and you'll get something that looks very much like this with a summary and title elements as part of the summary. When you've remediated all of your documents, return to Canvas and access the Files tab from the blue course menu. Here, you can re-upload all the files you've corrected. Remember, you haven't changed the file names, so when you do this, you'll get a box warning you that a file with that name already exists. Canvas will ask you if you want to rename the file or replace the existing version. You want to replace. This way, any links to the file in your course will be preserved. Only now, those links will direct students to the accessible document. Remember, the best way to ensure that content is fully accessible is to render it in Canvas. If you use documents, full accessibility involves applying the same rules for colors, links, tables, headings, structure, and images to the documents that you applied in Canvas content. And that's this week's Title II tip, brought to you by the Center for Inclusive Teaching and Learning here at UWSP. Remember, at CITL, we offer support for course design, learning activities, assessment, pedagogy, and accessibility. Visit our website to schedule a consultation today.